Looking to take your financial knowledge to the next level? You're in the right place. Welcome to Ask Ralph, offering accounting, technical, and financial advice. Whether you're looking to save taxes or improve your business, he's got you covered. Here's your host of Ask Ralph, Ralph Eastup Jr.
Welcome back to the Ask Ralph Show. We've been in this discussion of education. This is a series we've talked about. In the first few sections, we talked about tax credits and deductions. We talked about savings. And in our last session, we talked about the difference between federal student loans and private student loans. And we talked about, some of the benefits or the drawbacks of those. And like I said in my last session, you want to start with the federal student loans. Now, let's dive into the federal student loan program today. Now, this is what they will call an investment in your future. This is a loan you must repay. So be sure you understand your options and responsibilities. If you apply for financial aid, you may be offered loans as part of your school's financial aid offer. A loan is money you borrow and must be paid back with interest. Don't get confused into thinking this is some sort of grant. I've heard people say, well, I got this a subsidized loan, so that means I don't have to pay it back. No, that's not correct. And we'll talk about, the nuances of that here in a few minutes. So this is something that you need to pay attention to. Make sure you understand who is making the loan and the terms and conditions of the loan. We've talked about it last time that these can come from federal government or from private sector. Now, so we're going to talk about the federal loans. Say loans made by the federal government called federal student loans usually offer borrowers lower interest rates and have more flexible repayment options as compared to those made by banks and other private sources. Now, the U.S. Department of Education has two federal student loan programs. So let's dive into those. The first one is the William D. Ford Federal Direct Loan, or what they call the Direct Loan Program. It's the largest federal student loan program. Under the program, the U.S. Department of Education is your lender. Now, a subset of that, there are four types of direct loans available. There's your direct subsidized loan. These are loans made to eligible undergraduate students who demonstrate financial need to help cover the cost of higher education at a college or career school. Now, so let's take a little break here and talk about FAFSA. So the FAFSA is where you're going to derive this information. And this is something that we may talk about later. But the FAFSA is going to make this decision about whether you have that financial need or not. There are really distinct deadlines for that FAFSA, so stay on top of that. If I'm talking to parents, this is the thing I tell them is stay on top of that FAFSA. Get your taxes done early because your taxes are going to drive a lot of the decision points on there. Now, the second type of federal student loans the Department of Education handles is a direct unsubsidized loan. Those are loans made to eligible undergraduate, graduate, and professional students, but in this case, the student does not have to demonstrate financial need to be eligible for the loan. So the difference between the direct subsidized and the direct unsubsidized is that there's no financial need requirement. There are also what's called direct plus loans. These are loans made to graduate or professional student and parents of dependent undergraduate students to help pay for education expenses not covered by other financial aid. So this is the next step. And then there are also direct consolidation loans. We talked a little bit about that in our last session as one of the benefits to taking the federal approach to student loans. And that allows you to combine all of your eligible federal student loans into a single loan with a single loan servicer. So that's something you may want to take a look at. So if you've done, multiple levels of education, maybe you got an undergraduate degree and then you went for a master's degree, you may have two separate loans. But one of the cool things about these federal programs is you combine those loans together and it just makes it simpler. There are also the federal Perkins Loan Program. Now, as compared to the U.S. Department of Education, this is a program that's school-based for undergraduates and graduate students with exceptional financial need. Under this program, the school's the lender. So instead of the U.S. Department of Education being the lender, the school is going to be the lender. Now, one of the big things that comes up when we talk about student loans is how much money can I borrow in federal student loans? You've sat down and you figured out, my son's going to go to the University of Delaware. I'm not really sure what it costs now, but let's just say it's $10,000 a year. So how are we going to pay for that? So if you're an undergraduate student, you don't have a graduate degree, you can get up to $5,500 per year in Perkins loans depending on your financial need, the amount of other aid you receive, and the availability of funds at your college or career school. Now, you can also get up to $5,500 to $12,500 per year in direct subsidized loans and direct unsubsidized loans depending on certain factors, including your year in college. So one of the things they do there is they don't give you as much for your freshman and sophomore years, but they give you more in the later 2 years. And I think, it don't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. You need a college education to figure this one out. But they recognize that the likelihood of somebody not finishing school in the first year is the highest. So they're going to give you the less amount of the loan in the first year. And then once you get to your second year, they give you more. By the time you get to your third and fourth year, you're pretty much set that you're going to move and finish this up. Now, that was for undergraduates. Now, if you're a graduate student, you can get up to $8,000 each year in Perkin loans depending upon your financial need, the amount of other aid you receive, and the availability of funds at your college or career school. Again, because these are Perkins loans, these are managed by the individual education school. Now, if you're a graduate student, you can also get up to $20,500 each year in direct unsubsidized loans, and the remainder of your college costs not covered by other financial aid and direct plus loans. A credit check is required for a plus loan. So we talked about this a little bit before, but the direct subsidized, direct unsubsidized do not require a credit check. But if they're going to extend it, so if you're going to be a graduate student, let's say you're going to medical school, and the $20,500 isn't going to cover it, and you need to get into those plus loans, that's where they're going to look at your credit, because they're going to want to see, can they make this work? Now, if you're the parent of a dependent undergraduate student, the remainder of your child's college costs that are not covered by other financial aid, a credit check is required for a parent loan called a plus loan. So again, we talk about that plus loan from the standpoint of a graduate student. Well, for an undergraduate, maybe your parents would get, or if you're the parents, maybe you're going to take out a plus loan to pay for your child's education. Now, remember, you can borrow less than what your school offers. You should only borrow what you need. You may find that the school is going to give you a qualification that, you can qualify for more, but only take what you need. Now, what are the benefits to doing the federal loans? First one is the interest rate on federal student loans is almost always lower than that on private loans and much lower than a credit card. I think we mentioned that before. You don't need a credit check or a cosigner to get most federal student loans. You don't have to begin repaying your federal student loans until after you leave college or drop below half time. And we talked a little bit about that before with forbearance. If you demonstrate financial need, you can qualify to have the government pay your interest while you're in school. Federal student loans offer flexible repayment plans and options to postpone your loan payments if you're having trouble making payments. And we talked about those income programs where you can tell them what your income is and show that you have a need to have your income reduced. And if you work in certain jobs, we talked about this before, there are loan forgiveness programs that will help you in this case. So big picture, what you should consider before taking out student loans is this is a legal obligation. Keep track of how much you're borrowing. Research how much money you can make in your particular field. Understand what this is doing. Make your payments on time. Keep in touch with your loan servicer, because you don't want to be in this position where you're not paying those. Like I talked about before, they will offset your income. They will file against you, and you will not be a happy camper once this goes through. So that was really an overview of the federal loans. In our next session, we're going to talk about private student loans.
You've been listening to Ask Ralph, brought to you by Saggio Accounting Plus. Please subscribe to and rate our podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a rating and review. Our podcast is produced by Carolyn Peters. Thank you for listening, and be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Ask Ralph Media. You can also hear me each week on 1450 WILM and on 1410 WDOV in Delaware, and on the iHeartRadio app. Submit your questions or ideas for future shows by sending an email to AskRalph@AskRalph.com.
The information contained in this episode of Ask Ralph is based on data available as of the date of its release. Saggio Accounting Plus and Ask Ralph Media Inc. is under no obligation to update this content if changes occur. Applying this information to your specific situation requires careful consideration of all facts and circumstances, and any information provided is not to be considered as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult your tax advisor or attorney before acting on any material covered.